This edition of Monocle on Saturday was first broadcast on the 6th of December 2025. Hello, good morning, bonjour, it's Emma Nelson here, coming to you live from Rue Bachaumont in Paris. This is Monocle on Saturday with a lovely Christmassy theme. But before we get to that, we'll be talking about the week's news and culture. My guests, Florence, Biedermann and Daphńee Denis, will be joining me in the studio to tell us what they have spotted as well. And then the co-founder of women's wear brand Fetiche, April Crichton, will join us to talk about which of her pieces you can find at the Monocle Christmas Market here in 16 Rue Bachaumont. It's the 6th of December 2025, live from Paris. This is Monocle on Saturday with me, Emma Nelson. Hello, good morning. Florence Biedermann and Daphńee Denis, welcome to 16 Rue Bachaumont. It is lovely to see you again. Happy Christmas. And
Happy Christmas.
Welcome to the Monocle Christmas Market.
It's a bit early for Christmas.
Now,
yeah.
okay, so straight in. Is it too early for Christmas? Because there's that sense. What are we, the 6th of December?
We're the 6th of December.
So when does Christmas...
19 days.
Oh my God, really? Only 19 days, ladies and gentlemen, to do your thing. Is this correct? Because there is that feeling maybe whether this weekend we kind of tip in a little bit and we lean in and everything gets cozier and everything gets darker and we start to embrace the moment. Not for you, Daphne.
I blame it on the United States. It's because of Thanksgiving and then, moving on to the next party, which is Christmas.
And so when does
it's
the green...
a tiny bit early.
When does the green button get pressed to say, okay?
For Christmas shopping is the day before. And then Christmas feeling, I guess, around the 15th, when you start like laying off work and not feeling as busy.
Okay, so are you still sort of in the middle of supercharged, let's get everything done?
100%.
Excellent. Florence, how about you? When is your Christmas button being pushed?
Well, it's always too early for me, because commercially it starts like a month before. And we are supposed to be a lake country, by the way. So we shouldn't be that much into Christmas and Christmas trees and celebration. But, okay, for like the Christian Catholic part of the country, I would say like Daphne, like the last days before Christmas, I really start to feel it. So before that, it's just kind of vague feeling of something's going to happen.
So we don't have bundles of Christmas spirit oozing
Welcome
from
to
the microphones
Paris.
Today. Welcome to Paris, everybody. This is going to be fun. We've got half an hour though where we can talk about things. And I'm interested to see, because we'll be talking a little moment about Notre Dame and what they're doing with entry to the cathedral. But that idea that I think this is the first time I've ever heard someone say, we are a lay country, which is obviously something which it's part of the French identity. But the fact remains is that hasn't that just been totally abandoned by everybody else when it comes to the Christmas spirit, insofar as we just do Christmas anyway, regardless as to who, where or what you are? Or is there actually a genuine discussion in France about the fact that the laïcité, the lay nature of the country is something to be counted?
Yeah, there is a strong debate, but it's rather related to the strong Muslim community in the country, So the concept of laicity tends, I think, like to be more like to protect, a kind of what people perceive as a French identity being Christian, and to marginalize like the Muslim population. Like you are right to say, like France is a laic country, but the days off, like the bank holidays, are always Catholic days, like Assumption, whatever, Mary goes to heaven, or Christ resuscitates. Those are the banking holidays. So is it really like to consider that the days off have to be the Catholic calendar days?
Are we now changing the calendar, Daphne?
I think we should. No, I was going to say, I work with people who are Muslim and they couldn't care less about Christmas.
Excellent.
Breaking news.
Brilliant.
So who cares about Christmas eventually in this country?
Literally, it's not
People
got any
who
better.
want presents.
and it's in that glorious, welcoming, warm and fun-filled context that we're welcoming the Monocle Christmas Market. Goodness me, I think we need to sort of give them, I don't know, a suit of armour when we're going out today. Monocle's Christmas Market is having its inaugural run here at 16 Rue Bachamel. Come down regardless of your background, views, opinion, timetable, budget, whatever it is. Just come down because it's fun. Let's talk, though, about a little bit about Frank Gehry, one of the great giants of architecture. He died yesterday, aged 96. He was the man that someone once said he had absolutely no respect for symmetry, and he did the most amazing radical buildings. Let's hear from our design editor, Nic Monisse, who can talk to us a little bit about it. A very good morning to you, Nic. You're in London, is that correct?
I am in London, just, Emma Nelson, just.
But you're just back from the United States, where you were in Gehry buildings, is that correct?
Well, no, I'm on this whirlwind tour. It's slowly coming to an end. I was actually in a Gehry building in Australia about 3 weeks ago. So his Sydney Business School, which was completed in 2015. But earlier this summer, I was also in the Weissman Art Museum in Minnesota, which is one of his, I guess, earlier works. So I've been doing a bit of Gehry this year, and just a remarkable, wonderful architect whose work can completely lift your spirit. So a huge loss.
Indeed, it is a huge loss, but it is someone who managed to transform spaces. And indeed, when we look at something like the Guggenheim in Bilbao, this was this is the thing that everybody's talking about this morning. The fact that we can go to the design of the buildings in a moment, but his Guggenheim in Bilbao was credited with transforming a place which was on its knees, and it had this sort of it spawned a kind of a whole idea of a concept of the Bilbao effect, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this idea that a singular structure, an impressive building, can be a magnet, in this case, particularly for tourists, but also its ability to give a city pride in itself. I mean, if you're talking about the Guggenheim Bilbao, like all of his buildings, this kind of sculptural curvilinear structure that seems to defy geometry and fragmented forms, unconventional materials. The building looks like it's actually moving. It's just the most, I guess, remarkable thing. And again, speaking to the power of architecture and kind of what I was saying, this is maybe his strength, his ability to do this on all scales. So it can lift your spirit once you're kind of inside the actual structure and experiencing there, but also lift the spirit of a whole community and transform an entire context.
It did, because there are always places that make you smile, regardless of like what you think of the buildings objectively. But a Gehry building always inspired that thing that everybody craves, which is that visceral emotional response to a building. There was an article who was interviewed in Paris Match a couple of years ago, and the first question was, "Do you have disrespect for symmetry?"
I love that question. I hope he said yes, because it's such a if you're talking to your guests there in Paris and their disrespect for Christmas, Gehry clearly had a disrespect for symmetry, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, that's it's the variety and the spice of life. I mean, I think for me, his work, even just comparing portfolios. So the Sydney Business School, and I'm just going to talk about the buildings that I was in, but the Sydney Business School completed in 2015 versus the Art Museum in Minneapolis in 1993, you can see there's this real, maybe there's not symmetry in the work, but there's certainly a consistency and an ability to deliver decade after decade after decade on these architectures that can change how you feel. One thing I did notice, if you're going to compare the two structures, was he still did mature as a designer. If I had a gripe about the Weissman Art Museum, it's the fact that I think maybe it wasn't the most legible thing from the street, trying to work out where you enter, how you kind of get into the building. It seemed to be more almost about the actual architecture versus something like the Sydney Business School, where by that stage in his career, he seemed to have this real respect and real understanding of an architecture's place within the city, and you could readily walk into the building. It all kind of made sense from the street. It wasn't just about the structure. So, it's one thing to talk about you know, his disrespect for symmetry being something that ran over the course of his career. But it's another thing to talk about how he was still maturing and developing as an architect, despite winning the Pritzker Prize in 1989, architecture's highest honour.
It was that lovely tension that you described there, wasn't it? Because he always said that architecture for him, its starting point was art, which is an incredibly refreshing and sort of pure idea, isn't it? When how many architects nowadays think, actually, what is the artistic starting point for the job that we have to do? But at the same time, he had this humility of, I'm a simple maker of buildings, was one of his great quotes, which obviously sort of eyebrows are raised there. But it was that sort of that meeting point, wasn't it, of simplicity, exactly. A desire to create a very beautiful place that stayed upright and sort of would actually defy shape, and you using materials like titanium and taking plans and taking ideas from aircraft manufacturing. I mean, this is a magpie mind, isn't it?
Exactly. You know, even if you go back to that Pritzker Prize jury citation in 1989, and you know, they compared him to Picasso, which I just think is absolutely wonderful. This idea that architecture can be art, and it's funny you mentioned that. You know, there's this sort of tension between, is it architecture, is it art? It was similar discussions. As we said at the top, I'm just back from Miami, where I was at Design Miami, and these are discussions that are playing out there. Is it design? Is it art? And I think, if anything, the best works of architecture, the best works of the design can be considered both. And if anything, you know, not to have a go at the art world, but architecture, there's also this wonderful functionality to it. Obviously, and used to it, you actually get to live it, and to experience it. So it's a work of art that you get to play an active part in, that you're a participant in, and Frank Gehry, more than anyone, invited people to do that.
Let's bring in Daphńee, Denis, because we were talking before we went on air about the Fondation Louis Vuitton, which is what opened in 2014, I believe, and he talked about it being a vessel that symbolises France's cultural vocation. It is one of those places which absolutely celebrates, bathes in creativity, and it's an astonishing place to go into, isn't it?
It's absolutely amazing. I've also been to the Guggenheim in Bilbao, and honestly, Gehry for me it's just the sense of perspective. It's the fact that nothing looks the same when you walk through the building. Everything transforms the sense of perspective, the views, the lines are all different. And you were talking about symmetry, and I think there's something quite humane and quite beautiful about the idea of not respecting symmetry, because a human face is not symmetrical. You know, like, I think there's something in there that his play with lines has something deeply humane, and yeah, I really admire his work.
Nic, coming back to you in London, Gehry, born in Toronto, a Canadian, but moves to Canada when he's 14, and it then goes to Harvard to study town planning, but drops out. And now you a former architecture student, he dropped out because it just didn't chime with him. He didn't get it, and it was only actually when he went to Paris and saw Notre Dame that sort of like the scales fell from his eyes, and he realised what his life's work was going to be. But that idea now of what things are being taught to young people, young architects, young designers now, where does Gehry sit with that, given the fact that he didn't like the way that urban planning was being taught?
Well, I think it's quite fascinating. There's a few things there, and you can see it in his work. I mean, again, going back to the Foundation Louis Vuitton, I've been there as well. It has this. It's kind of sitting in this parkland landscape, and it pulls you in like a magnet. And then once you're in, you've kind of got views back to Paris. So he certainly did understand context, which, you know, maybe a little bit of that urban planning experience in Harvard comes out in his work. But I think more than anything, and if we're going to go back to the Bilbao effect, the wonderful thing about his education, and you know, this little kind of dipping his toes rather in the urban planning pool, moving to Paris, you know, having the opportunity to study the work of Le Corbusier, coming back to the United States and pulling this all together. I think that if we're talking about architecture educations, the best educations is to go out and to live it, to experience things, to you know, maybe try studying one thing, realize that's not quite for you, bring those experiences though to other work, and really create this holistic kind of self-education, for want of a better expression. So I think he did that remarkably well, and I think the thing with architecture is it's really about life, and if you haven't had life experience, if you can't draw from all these things, I don't think you're going to be a good architect, and he certainly had that.
Nic Monisse, Monocle's design editor in London, thank you so much for joining us. Joining me in the studio here at Rue Bachamont in Paris, I have Florence Biedermann and Daphńee Denis going through the papers. Florence, what did you spot this week that's caught your eye? I think we all want to talk about Nicolas Sarkozy, is that correct?
Yeah, there are two, let's say, political subjects. One would be the budget, the fact that France is desperately trying to adopt its budget, and it has to do it before the end of the year with a huge deficit of more than 170 billion euros. So it's really a very pressing matter. And what you see in the discussion around it is that the parliament is completely divided. It reflects the situation in France since Emmanuel Macron lost his relative majority by calling a disastrous snap election. Since then, France has been in a mess, and you can feel that more than trying to get together to adopt this budget, everybody on each party is jockeying for the next electoral thing that come, which will be the presidential election. So now it seems at the point we reached, and it may be final, there is not a final vote, yes, but we are nearing to it, that the MPs decided to suspend the pension reform. That was the big achievement of Macron in his second 5 years term. So you have this feeling that you are in a kind of dying Macronism period, and nobody really knows what will come next.
And it is not being replaced by a sense of collective purpose to the why of the pension reforms and the why of joining together and approving a budget. This is a parliament, Daphne, that has been so paralysed since June 2024 that one almost wonders whether it's absolutely abandoned its idea of what it wants to do. It's just decided to fight.
Yeah, I think that's what's happening. I think there's a sense of leadership that's completely lost. We don't know. We've had so many prime ministers. We've had this current prime minister has been named twice. He's sworn to get a budget approved. I don't even know what to think anymore. And you have so much infighting that I think people just already have fatigue ahead of the presidential election. We just don't. We don't know what to make of this ongoing fight that's kind of not going anywhere.
Do we think this budget will go through, Florence? Finally, I know everyone says it has to, but that's never a guarantee.
It may not. That's the point. That's the whole point. I mean, and if it does not, that means France will lose more money. I mean, limited measures will have to be taken, which means no real measures to try to rein in the deficit. So France will be in a worse situation still than it is now.
And how is this being borne out in French society at the moment? Where do the French feel that they are at the moment? You talked about that idea of sort of already feeling burdened by a future presidential election, but how does that play down in creativity, in business, on the streets?
Well, I mean, the fact that there's no budget for France is very bad for business, obviously. It's difficult for businesses to plan ahead. It's difficult to imagine or make a projection for what the next year is going to be if you don't know, what kind of help you can get from the French government, et cetera, et cetera. And I think for people, it's the same, like what they were voting on yesterday was social security. So it's a big thing for us. It's important. And
that's your access to healthcare, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, sorry. That's our healthcare. And so people are concerned. It's a bit of a running joke, but also I think people are deeply concerned about what's going on.
And the international attractiveness of France is diminished as a result. I mean, you see Emmanuel Macron on the stage, like so many leaders, fabulous abroad, doing all the right things, and yet at home, the fact is that if the economy is stagnating in the way that Daphne describes, it means that inward investment will be suffering and confidence in France might change.
Yeah, absolutely. But so far, it didn't reach a point of crisis because still the fundamentals are there. but it's totally detrimental.
Okay, let's talk about Nicolas Sarkozy, despite our best efforts not to. He's written a book, everybody. And so have we read it? It's not out until the 10th of December. But what's the book about? If Father Christmas is doing his thing and we all behave like good boys and girls, and we might get 2 weeks in prison by Nicolas Sarkozy. How excited are we of that?
Yeah, I hope you will include it in your Christmas market, Laura.
Already.
I'm not sure it would be so, but you've just given me a great idea for my Secret Santa present. So thank you very much.
Okay, so what's he done? Just recap a little bit for us what he's done.
I think what he's doing is a decoy. He's trying to get people to talk about something else than the corruption scandal that he's embroiled in and he's been convicted for. That's what he's doing.
Okay, what do you think of it, Florence?
Now, what I say in it is like the extraordinary leniency in France for corruption scandals. I mean, he's a former president. He has been sentenced twice, definitely for corruption, for influence peddling, for trespassing the limits of electoral spending. Now he has been sentenced again, but he appealed, so he's presumed innocent in a very, very serious state scandal. Like he has been seen guilty of association de malfaiteurs, like complicity to get money from Libyan sources to finance his electoral campaign, so which is a real scandal. So in spite of all this, like he still is a towering political figure in French politics.
Indeed, he has his supporters. There are sort of slight chimes with Trump insofar as Trump, too, is a convicted criminal. And yet he's in the White House. And Nicolas Sarkozy went to prison, albeit for 2 weeks. But is there not some sort of reassurance to be drawn from that, given the fact that France, for the first time, has decided to do something that would happen to any other citizen?
Yeah, and I think he's scandalized by that. He said he's insulted the justice system. He said that the justice system is unfair, which is not true. What happened to him going to prison for a whole 2 weeks is what happens to 53% of people. Sometimes they don't even have time to prepare to go, which he was given a few days before he actually went to jail. And he's just being treated like any other person. In fact, he was advocating for a very harsh justice system himself. So I think he's just, getting a taste of his own medicine.
You're listening to Monocle on Saturday with me, Emma Nelson, coming to you from the Monocle Christmas market. Not Christmassy, if you've gathered. In this room, Florence Biedermann and Daphńee Denis have already voiced their opinions. Let's talk a little bit about Paris and an article in Le Parisien today, which talks about dirty Paris. Now, when we talked about this before we came on air, Daphne went bananas and just went, I need to talk about this because I nearly broke the BBC. Confess, why did you nearly kill the British Broadcasting Corporation, and why are we talking about it this morning? I
committed a video report called "Why Do Frenchmen Pee in the Streets of Paris?"
Excellent, and one of the great questions.
I hear that there was it received a lot of views, and some journalists were worried that they would only be asked to a report on urine from then on, but hopefully not. Okay,
so thank you for doing that for us. Tell us a little bit more about this article in Le Parisien. It's one of those slightly woolly surveys, so I don't think we can attribute a tremendous amount of seriousness to this. But the whole idea that Paris has been described as the 5th dirtiest city for tourists. I mean, when we're walking along the street in Paris, how are we feeling? Daphne first.
I'm going to take this with a pinch of salt because this survey is based on Google comments. So
isn't that the oracle now? Isn't that just how we all live our lives anyway?
Maybe. But I do think that the French have a strange relationship with hygiene, and that is what the BBC piece was about. It's historic. It's from the 19th century. We've been taught to hide dirt instead of cleaning it, and apparently that explains why people pee in the streets. I literally researched this topic.
Tell me more about it. When how do you hide dirt?
But there was a hygienist move, and so at the moment of Haussmann, etc., people were told to be ashamed of the fact that before they used to throw their dirt from the window, and so we hide. We don't like to look at what we produce. We don't like to put things away. And so I think the biggest problem in Paris, honestly, it it is the P.
Is this correct? I mean, talking about personal hygiene, you've married a Brit, so I think we've had full disclosure.
An Irish guy,
an Irishman, but not a Frenchman, and questionable peeing habits in the street.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true that you have this feeling when you live in Paris that it's a dirty city. I cannot deny it. When I come back, like from London or for other cities in France, and it also depends of the parts of Paris, like Eastern Paris, which is with lower income than Western Paris, will eventually be less clean, whether because there is less cleaning or whatever. It's not dealt in the same way. It's a less touristic area. So I live in the east of Paris, and yes, the east of Paris is dirty. You come here to Rue Bachaumont, well, already the situation is much better. So there are also some kind of, I don't know, other factors than just the French being dirty.
Okay.
No, of course.
The psychological aspect of it. Let's clean things up a bit. It's the first Christmas market here in Paris in full swing this weekend at 16 Rue Bachaumont. As you can see, as Florence has just said, it will be neat as a pin, not as a microbe of dust anywhere. But we have lots to offer as well. A little bit of touch of Monocle Christmas has come. We have raclette, we have mulled wine, and also we have so many beautiful things to offer you in terms of presents and things. If you can't bring yourself to buy the Nicolas Sarkozy 2 weeks in prison autobiography, don't worry, we have slightly less angry things. And one of these people is April Crichton from La Fetiche, an amazing women's wear brand and a friend of Monocle. It is lovely to see you again. Welcome back, April.
Thank you for inviting me here. It's delightful to be here.
Now, for those of us who haven't stroked your knitwear.
Okay, yes.
Tell me what you do.
We create beautiful, knitwear essentially from Scotland and some pieces from France. But we've always adored working with makers, directly with makers. And so Orly Forestium, my desire in 2017 was to work closely with beautiful artisans in both France and Scotland, and to go to visit them and to do what they do best with our DNA. So we produce beautiful, bright, colour block knits in super soft lamb's wool, all made from Scotland, and celebrate the joy in our beautiful, irreverent, kind of easy to wear, but just deliciously kind of soft knitwear.
Okay, we're all sold.
Good.
That idea of irreverence, though, because I think if you're based in Paris, there's not quite, there's quite a subtle and yet downplayed uniform. I don't think anyone around this table is wearing anything other than black and grey.
Yeah.
You're wearing black and grey. I've seen a green skirt, and Daphne's pointed at her pink cap. I've got it wrong. But what you've got there on is you have your subdued, beautiful grey, thunder grey sweater. But what you've added to it is an electric pop of blue and pink and a bright green collar.
Yeah. I mean,
a deliberate move.
Adore modernist culture, Bauhaus, all of that world. And for me, it's just been the way we live, the way I love. I'm interested in that kind of culture and that design. So it just automatically, I guess, subconsciously translates into my design and how I create.
I'm going to ask you to do it consciously. So So talk us through your jumper, April.
Well, I'm quite unusual, I guess, in the way I was brought up in the UK. I trained at St Martin's, but then I live in Scotland. But I worked for many years, 25 years, in Paris. So I have an interesting life in the way I kind of move around and I see and I absorb. And I think we all do this kind of subconsciously. We do dress for where you are inhabiting your space. You absorb kind of the way people engage, and you do engage with how you dress and how you want to feel, I feel, in a certain city. And I think I have this sort of interesting eclectic mix, I think, of wanting to stand out, but stand out in a kind of my own way. So this is the result of that, I feel. Many years of kind of enjoying, I guess I want to feel kind of elevated and chic, but in a very relaxed way, you know.
So what comes from what parts? You have Scotland, which has its own style. You have Paris, which has its own style. And I know that every time you come to Paris, it's like, well, how do I dress? How do I dress? What are they wearing? What are they wearing? You have something in there.
Well, I worked with the grand dame of knitwear, Sonia Raquel, in Paris, so for many, many years. So I had a great education with Madame Riquial. So that was, she absolutely adored the way I dressed, but she loved my eccentricity, my Britishness at that time. So
what would you define as the Britishness?
I think, well, she always used to be amused, as she called it, by the way I sort of put things together. And but then that would entertain her. And I think she would be inspired as well. And she would ask me to go out and buy her the same pair of shoes that I just bought and something from Monocle that I'd bought, and she was kind of enchanted by it. Yeah, so I think we shared, strangely, a connection, although we were extremely different in the way we kind of lived our lives and our cultures, but it was a beautiful marriage. So somehow this all kind of comes together and makes you who you are and how you want to express yourself.
And this brings out, and this is all being brought out here at the Monocle Christmas Market.
It is indeed.
So tell us a little bit more about what you're doing.
So what we do here is I'm really conscious of making things, but also making garments that have a timelessness and an endurance. And I have a certain sense of style now, and the style of the clothing never really changes. So each piece has its integral beauty, and we have lots of archival pieces that we like to share with our Monocle kind of community. So that's what we're doing today. We have a table stacked full of beautiful piles of knits for people to come and rummage and try on, and hopefully leave happily with a gift or two.
I don't think we'd ever rummage.
Well, you can. I feel like you do. You must do that. You mustn't feel precious about clothing. It's there to be enjoyed and loved and desired and shared, and yeah, absolutely. That's what it's about. You must have fun with clothing. It's definitely that's my intention.
April Crichton from La Fetiche, thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you get back to setting up your stall. Gosh, you're going to be doing a little folding this afternoon.
Yes. I love it.
And if you're coming down to 16 Rue Bachaumont, we've got the likes of Alpe Piano, Apothecari, Cinabre, Gad, Lessie, Easter, I'm trying to read this, at top speed, Knightsbridge Rocks, Brenda is in town, everybody. La Distillerie de l'Arbre Sec, excellent. Loads of stuff. And La Fetiche. Come down, the list is endless, and you'll get lots of nice surprises and some raclette and some wine as well. We're going to leave it there. We're going to say thank you so much to Florence Biedermann and Daphńee Denis, my guests in the studio. And thanks to the producers, Laura Kramer, Desiree Bandley and Mariella Bevan. Mariella was our studio manager in London. Steph Chungu standing next to me here in Paris. Monocle on Saturday returns next week. We're going to be at the London Christmas Market then. If you're in Paris tomorrow, or indeed if you're in Toronto or Tokyo, the Monocle Christmas Market is on this weekend. Come down or just stay tuned. We'll be bringing you lots of nice things from here. Tyler Brûlé is behind the microphone tomorrow from Monocle on Sunday from 16 Rue Bachaumont from 10 a.m. local time. But for now, from me, Emma Nelson, goodbye. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great weekend.